Hey YouTube, Jake Kilroy back in the shop. At the time of this video, this is mid-March 2020. The coronavirus toilet paper disaster has hit full on. And they say the best way to not spread the disease is to socially isolate yourself. So, I'll be spending some good quality time in the shop. Anyway. Just got back from the first Windy Hill Foundry Invitational. Had a great time. Saw lots of people. We're gonna have a whole video on that very soon. Today we kind of have a project, a little project for a friend of mine who's a avid wood turner. Let me bring the camera around and I'm gonna show you what we got. So what we have here is a slide assembly from a Powermatic Model 90. If you might remember a video I did quite a while ago, I made a bushing for this lathe here for him to be able to use 1-inch size tooling. Anyway, so what's happened here is the way this slide works. So this shaft is turned on an eccentric right center, and you can see as I turn this here that this threaded rod moves up and down. It's got about, you know, almost say 3/16 of stroke there. This sits on the bed, and then this piece sits under the bed, and this lock nut goes on here, and then so you can take this handle here, it pins onto the shaft, you can loosen it and you can slide this all around to position your tool rest for your wood turning needs. And so what's happened here is well, I don't think I even need to disassemble here. I don't think I even really need to show you. So this stud is bent. I'm gonna see if I can show that to you, see if you can see that. This stud, it's 5/8 11. Off of this piece here, it's bent to the side. And he's not getting a good locking action. It's sitting, it's not locking down to the bed firmly, and not working to his expectation. He gave me some measurements for the width of the bed, the gap between the legs of the bed, very similar to a metal lathe, without the V ways obviously, and then the thickness of the bed that this sits under. So the gap in the center is 2.5 inches, and the thickness of the bed is approximately 9/16 inches. We have that to work with. And then the other thing that really needs to be redone is this bronze bushing, which is, well, I don't know if you can see, it's not really round anymore. It looks like it's had a few run-ins with screwdrivers. It's kind of shot. It goes down here. We're going to remake this entirely as well because, well, it's shot. And the shaft is in okay shape. There's a little damage here, a little, but there's no burr that's raised. It's still functional. I don't really want to reduce any diameters on this, so I'm probably gonna maybe stone this, paper this, get this cleaned up, make sure there aren't any burrs. And there's a burr, a little slight burr right there, but make sure there aren't any burrs on here to cause any trouble. Here's a kind of a little rust, but it looks like it's been hammered on, got some chowder there. So that is going to be the project. This stud has been welded, if that's what you call it, on here, and that's pretty thin. That material right there is pretty thin, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I'd like to add some more meat here if possible, to get better traction, you know, for welding in this 5/8 11 stud. You don't need, you know, there ought to be about 1/2 an inch, maybe a little less, say 3/8 of an inch, that I can add here, that you could take off this threaded section to really get some more meat here for attaching this stud on. So first thing we're going to try doing here is we're just going to try cleaning this thing off, getting rid of this, getting rid of all these little beads and bumbles, and then see if we can salvage this piece. But first I need to note exactly how far this sticks off the back here, and note that on the whiteboard here. 1.34 inches, and it's 5/8 by 11. So what I'm going to try to do is clean all this junk off here. So this is the bolt we're going to use. It's the only reasonably sized 5/8 by 11 bolt that I had. And you'll notice that the nut, the factory lock nut on the Powermatic, is not galvanized, which means it won't go on here, right? So we got to get rid of this galvanizing, and a couple reasons. One, bolt won't fit, nut won't fit. I mean, two, you don't want to weld galvanizing. Welding on galvanized metal produces, I believe, zinc oxide gas, which is bad for you. You don't want to breathe it. So, got a little muriatic acid. Let's see what we can do. So it's the next day, parts have cooled off. It's time for a little post-production on my welding. All kidding aside, and who's kidding, you know, TIG welding is still somewhat of a challenge for me. The mechanics I've got the mechanics down, but I really have a difficult time hitting the number, right? The power number right on different jobs. And when you're doing little stuff like this, unusual things like this, it's always kind of different. But you know, you start off too low. I started off here, I think I started off at like 75 amps, right? And then quickly progressed to 100, and then quickly progressed to 125, which probably turned out to be a little much. And you know, when you have relatively thin material here in this one section here, this side, it's very thin where the hole passes through. And then over here on this side, there's a lot of mass. And then there's this bolt, which has a fair amount of meat on it. So it's all a little different. As you can tell, I put a significant amount of heat into it. It took on a nice heat bluing there, but everything still fits up. The hole didn't warp. Everything assembles just fine. The next part of the project is to make a new bushing to go here. Here's the original bushing. It's quite out of round. I'll give you a close-up on that. So here's this bushing, and well, it's pretty bad. It's not really round anymore. It's more of kind of flat on the sides. It's obviously been beat to hell and back, so we're going to make a new one. All right, we got plenty of cut there. I got to get 875 here for a little parting action. I love cutting bronze, but God, it makes a mess. All right, we're gonna put her back together here. Got the slightest dab of high pressure grease. I sure would like to put something in there to fill that gap. Alrighty. So let's get a nice snug fit here. There we go. Maybe that will keep dust and chips, sawdust from getting all up in there. Oh, wrong way. All right, looks like that's gonna work out okay. This goes on here. All right. Repair has taken place. I think he's going to be pleased with that. Get back to his woodchucking activities. So the part's done, been delivered to my buddy, and he sent me a few pics for y'all to check out of it installed on the machine. You'll also notice the bushing repair that I did for him previously. He's back there, and he's ready to make wood fly. So hopefully he'll get good use out of this. Otherwise, you know, this is the end of kind of the first week of the COVID-19 social distancing. I want to wish everybody the best. If anyone is personally affected by this, as far as health goes, I'm hoping for a swift recovery. Everybody try to do their part to limit the spread of this disease, and hopefully we can get ahead of this sooner rather than later. But as always, be safe in the shop, and I'll be back with you soon.